this new one?
You mean in the same section?
Like the same topics
material?
Yeah.
Okay, so biology, they have actually probably increased the material you have to know. Chemistry, they've definitely cut it, right? So chemistry used to be 50% of, so they not only cut how much comprises each section, right? So it used to be 50% in the physical sciences, it used to be 50% G-Chem, 50% physics. Now it's 33% in the chemical and physical, in this section, chemical and physical foundations, and 5% in biology. So they not only cut the percentage of questions that come from general chemistry, but they also cut, I'd say roughly, 20 to 25% of the topics you had to know. So the ones that they've cut that I'd be careful with in studying is general chemistry, organic chemistry, and physics. But what they've most likely increased is biology. Or not most likely, they have increased what you have to know for biology and biochem. Biochem was never on the old test. Now it's 50%. It's 25% of this guy and 25% of biological. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys talk about the order of the sections.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure. Okay, do you happen to know?
I don't.
Okay.
I have a good. That's a good question.
I have a good idea. So I'm pretty positive on this. I'm pretty sure they still have chemical and physical first.
Yeah.
Then comes the critical analysis. Then I believe is psych.
I think psych.
No,
I
psych
think
is
they
last.
still have biology last.
Psych is last. So
Psych is last. Oh, okay.
But I thought biology was still last. Okay, so
I thought biology was still last.
yeah, I know for sure that it goes chemical and then the verbal. But then I can find, when you guys are doing the passage, I'll find out and then I'll let you guys know. It's a good question. But it's roughly similar to last time. So verbal is still in the middle, the chemical and physical is still first, and then the biological is later on. The only difference now, though, is that biology appears, except for the critical analysis, the car section, biology is in all three, right? So it's now, the lines are getting blurred. Right, and the passage that we're going to do today is really reflective of that. So it's kind of harder in a sense that now, so before, let's say for example, you knew about optics, right? You knew about the human eye, but you didn't really know how they related. Well, now you have to know, right? So now you have to be able to, it's just an example, you have to be able to relate optics equations with how your eye works, right? So it's a little harder in that sense that you actually have to know, because before the criticism was, what's the point of what's the point of knowing about circuits if we're going to be doctors, right? And that was a valid criticism.
I heard that already.
Yeah, I mean, really. I mean, a lot of students, myself included, just said, hey, it's a test, just beat the test and you'll be fine. But it is a valid concern that what's the point of knowing, parallel circuits versus series circuits if you want to be just a regular doctor or something, right? So they took that criticism to heart, and now they're going to show you, okay, this is how the random physics equations relate to the human body, right? So all the complaining, it worked, but I don't know if it's to your advantage. But yeah, so now there is, of course, more chemistry and physics in this section, but there's biology in pretty much everything now, except for this guy. Any other questions? These are good questions, by the way. Yeah.
I don't know if this was explained already. How is car different than the verbal reasoning from last?
So from my understanding, it's about the same, right? I think they've added the number of questions, but the types of questions and the sort of the way to approach them, I'm pretty sure is. So let's see, we've got it here. I'm pretty sure it's the same.
The science section.
Yeah, there's no science.
No science verbal passages?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's just, it's on there.
Okay. Yes.
Social sciences. It's social sciences and humanities passages.
Yeah, so although they did take out certain science verbal passages, what's the commonality between all verbal reasoning / cars passages? What do they all have in common? It's stuff you've never seen before. So they purposefully give you passages that are not part of the syllabus to test your ability to see something brand new and answer questions on it. So it really hasn't changed that much. They might have said, okay, we're not going to have science-based passages, and I think the reason they did that is because you had really smart kids who knew a lot about science getting those passages right because they knew it going into the test. So the purpose of this section is to give you something on 13th century medieval history and ask you questions about it, right? Or philosophy questions or government questions. It's all random types of questions. So that's what the purpose hasn't changed. So in my opinion, verbal is still going to be the same. It's still going to be brand new stuff you haven't seen, and they're going to ask you questions about something you just read, right? Do you have a question or?
As far as like, psychology, sociology, that section.
Yeah.
Is it better, like, I've taken these classes a long time ago, and I don't know if it's helpful to go back to them and look at the subjects that you guys are going to have on there?
Yeah, so from my understanding, psychology and sociology section, what you need is an introductory psych and soc class, right? So, let's see. I don't think we have it up here. Oh, there it is. Okay, so from my understanding, what the AAMC released is that as long as you've taken a semester of introductory sociology and a semester of introductory psychology, you'll be fine for this section. So if you remember the basics, so you always want to review, right? But if you remember the basics, you might just be okay with doing a, let's say like reading over the Princeton Review questions or whatever review company questions that they give you. Does that make sense? Yeah, so in terms of like, if you take an advanced psychology and sociology, I probably wouldn't spend the time on it, especially if your time is limited to study, because AAMC explicitly stated that all you need is an intro psych and an intro social class, which probably means that this material is going to be heavily so let's say you've got a passage-based question. What that means is that the questions are going to rely heavily from the passage, right? That's my prediction. Because when they say all you need is an intro psych and an intro social class, it's kind of vague, right? They can differ by a large margin, these classes, right? Some can be super comprehensive and others can be like the complete and utter basics of psych and soc, right? So yeah, that's actually another good point is that you've got passage-based questions, but typically the chemistry and the physics passage-based questions are less reliant on the passage itself, whereas biology and psychology and sociology, and of course verbal, the questions are more reliant on the passage. So in other words, in the psychology, sociology, and biology passages, you're more likely to find the correct answer in the passage than something that you had to remember from your class or from a review course. Yeah, so that's my prediction because it's a very vague requirement that they want, and this is a brand new section, so I don't see them asking some random psych theory that you'd find in an upper division class. They're going to give you passages. Typically, it's going to be data, right? So psych and social are important in medicine because that's how a lot of behavioral data, right? That's where a lot of these theories come from in medicine, psych and social theories. So that's my prediction, is that they're going to give you a passage where they conduct some psychological experiment and they're going to ask you questions about it that come directly from the passage. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of passages are usually based on interpreting graphs and data.
It's a big part, yeah.
Like, how would you, is there any outside thing, you would recommend?
So the way to get good at that is to do lots of practice, right? So it's actually interesting because pretty much every science passage you come across is going to have data tables and graphs. It's very rare to come across one that doesn't have data nor graphs. But the funny thing is that some passages will have these data and graphs, and there will be 0 or maybe 1 question based on that data. So it's kind of funny how they're going to put a lot of data tables and values and stuff, but only some passages utilize that information while others don't. So, basically, how you get good at determining, what's important and what's not is to do lots of practice passages. Okay. Any other questions? These are really good questions, yeah.
Is philosophy on the exam?
So philosophy would only show up in the car section, and you don't have to know anything about philosophy going into the test. Yeah. So just psych and soc, which, no philosophy, which is probably good for. Have any of you guys taken a philosophy class? I don't know. It's maybe you liked it, maybe not, but yeah. So it's good that there's no philosophy. It's it's a little subjective, but the philosophers don't say so. The philosophers say this is pure objectivism, but I disagree. Anything else? Yeah.
Other than this being a longer test, do you think the difficulty is the same, or is it more like endurance?
I think it's a more difficult test, to be honest, because now you have to know biochemistry as well. And biochemistry is, in my opinion, so GChem and OChem, those are lower division courses typically, while biochem is an upper division course. You have to have biology, GChem, and OChem to even take the course typically at a university. So because they've added biochemistry, and because they're now synthesizing all of the sciences into how it relates to medicine, in my opinion, it's harder, because on the old test, it still wasn't memorization, but as long as you understood physics and how it works in that realm, you were okay. And as long as you understood biology and how it works in that realm, you were also okay. But on the old test, if you didn't know how, for example, how optics relates to vision, or how, laws of fluids relates to your veins and arteries, you could have been okay on the old test. On the new test, it'll be bad, right? So you have to now synthesize all the sciences, so it's harder in that respect. And it's longer, so it is more of an endurance test. You're gonna be tired after 7 hours, right? The old one was 3.5. I mean, you were done not even before noon. If you took it at 8 a.m., you were done at noon, or like 11:50 or something like that. So it's harder in that respect. Okay, maybe we should start the passage, because I think we end at 12:45, right?
I give you another 5-10 minutes just because we started later. So
Okay.
you have like 30 minutes left.
Yeah, I predict that the passage shouldn't take more than to do it and to go over, I'd say 20-25 minutes. So do they have printouts of the?
Yeah, so what I provided you all is a page that has the 2 slides that we'll put up here as we go along of the passage. So, and then there will be questions relating to the passage that Adam will link up onto the screen individually for you, so that, I don't know how you want to do. You want to link those up and have them answer them on their own first, and then you go over them, or whatnot. And then the
Yeah.
other piece is, before we leave today, I want to make sure you fill out the information form, the green information